Hi there, and welcome to Oaklandside 510. I'm Esther Kaplan, Deputy Editor at the Oaklandside, Oakland's independent nonprofit newsroom. And I'm your host this week, in for Tasneem Raja. Earlier this year, the Oaklandside hosted a high school fellowship program supported by the Stewart Foundation, where Oakland high schoolers worked alongside our reporters on real stories. And today, I'm sitting down with one of them, Cecia Gonzalez, who just completed her sophomore year at Oakland Technical High School. Cecia worked on two stories with our newsroom, one about free student bus passes that are urgently needed but aren't always easy to get, and another about how school fights spread on group chats and social media and how OUSD is struggling to keep up. Then, our education reporter, Ashley McBride, talks with Castlemont High School's principal about why his school decided to skip AP classes altogether in favor of something else. Let's get into it. Cecia, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Esther.
So let's start with the bus pass story. That's the one that you really took the lead on. Oakland does not have its own school bus system. Instead of classic yellow buses, students ride AC Transit, our public bus system. So to make that work, Alameda County started offering free bus passes to public school students. And on paper, every OUSD middle and high schooler is eligible to get one. This is a program that's been around for a decade now. So, Cecia, what made you and the team want to take a closer look at it?
So we kept hearing the same thing from students. They applied for their free pass and then nothing. As we started doing interviews, we learned that some of them had waited months for their pass. Even some waited years.
Years.
Yeah. We talked to a sophomore at Oakland Tech, Stephen Myers. He said he commutes 11 miles from deep East Oakland. His mom told us they've been applying for the free student pass since he was in middle school. By the time we talked to them, he was finishing 10th grade.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, and then AC Transit's records tell a slightly different story. They say a card was delivered to his middle school back in 2022. Either way, that card never made it into Stefan's hands.
So all these years, he's just been paying out of pocket for the bus then?
Yeah, he said he finds cash or borrows it from friends, or he just bikes 11 miles each way up and down a bunch of hills when he doesn't have fare. His mom had said she's worried about him getting hurt on the ride, and she told us that a nephew was hit by a SUV while biking in Oakland and now has a rod in his leg.
That sounds terrifying for her, exhausting for him. And Stefan wasn't the only student you talked to who'd been waiting a long time, right?
No, not even close. We talked to students with stories of long delays at Madison Park Academy, Oakland Tech, Oakland School for Arts, and Oakland High. One student waited 3 months, another waited a year and a half.
Wow. So let's talk numbers for a second, because the scale of this program is pretty striking. How many students participate?
Just over 31,000 students across Alameda County last school year, across 161 schools. Oakland has by far the most participants, over 14,000. That's more than 3/4 of all OUSD middle and high schoolers.
And the agencies that run it, what did they say when you asked about these incredible delays?
Yeah, the Alameda County Transportation Commission told us they typically take 4 to 6 weeks to process a pass, but that's clearly not what a lot of families were experiencing. Their spokesperson said they take reports of delays seriously and that Stephen Myers' experience isn't representative.
But you actually found a pattern.
Yeah, we did. And part of that comes from the staffing. The Transportation Commission has only one full-time person on this program. AC Transit has one full-time employee and one part-time temp.
That's not a lot to handle passes for 31,000 students, I'm going to say.
And AC Transit spokesperson told us the program has grown from serving 2,000 students in 9 schools a decade ago to now when more than 40,000 students are eligible. Staffing hasn't kept pace.
What is this actually costing families? I know you did some math on that, at least with Stefan's family.
Yeah, with Stefan, if he's spending $50 a month on fare over 3 years, that's up to $1,500 his family paid that they wouldn't have had to pay if that pass had come through on time.
That's real money, $1,500. And for a family that this program is specifically designed to help, right? People for whom public transit fees just aren't affordable.
Yeah, exactly. His mom told us it's not just an inconvenience. Food is already expensive, and this was money that could have gone towards that.
So what did you learn? Is the county changing this broken system?
Well, they said they're doing outreach before the school year starts, adding consultants to help process applications and piloting a temporary card students can use while they wait for the permanent one.
That's a start. And Stefan, after waiting 3 years, tell us what happened with him.
Yeah, right. After we told the Transportation Commission about his situation, his pass came through, which is obviously good for him, but it also kind of proves the point. It took a reporter asking questions to get it resolved.
And that reporter was you. That's sometimes how these stories go, unfortunately. Cecia, thanks to you and your co-student reporter, Maya Mastropasqua, for this reporting.
Yeah, I loved reporting it with Jose Formosa, Oaklandside's transportation reporter.
So let's move on to the second story that you contributed to for the Oakland side. This one is about school fights and how they're spreading on social media, spreading on group chats, and how OUSD is trying to respond. This one starts with some pretty disturbing footage.
Yeah, my co-reporters Nathan Fuentes and Ashley Martin Chalice found an inactive but public Instagram account with more than 500 posts, including videos of fights at Oakland Tech's campus, where I go to school. One video shows a fight in a parking lot with a crowd of teens standing around, some recording on their phones. And then another one shows two girls walking into a full classroom and attacking a student while the teacher tried to break it up.
Oof. And this wasn't just one account.
No, they found at least 8 Instagram accounts posting fight videos from Oakland Tech, Skyline, Castlemont. It's unclear really who runs them. And a lot of the posts aren't even videos. They're screenshots of anonymous Google form submissions, just full of rumors and insults about students.
Wow. And how is the district responding to these kinds of accounts?
So OUSD's executive director of safety talked to Rosalind Romero, our mentor. He told us these accounts would likely fall under the district's cyberbullying policy. This August, the school board is going to consider updates to student discipline around cell phone use, including penalties for students who film and post fights.
Well, that director of safety, Nelson Alegria, he had a pretty candid line about why this is hard for adults to monitor, right?
Yeah, he said, quote, "We're not in these spaces. We're not on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, or any of the other new and upcoming platforms our students are on." Related to all this, Rosalind asked him about the November shooting at Skyline. A parent told us that in weeks before the shooting happened, students were circulating a social media post showing a student involved in the incident posing with a gun. Alegria confirmed that the post was discovered about 2 weeks before the shooting.
So there may have been a warning sign circulating that nobody reported.
Yeah, and that's what the district is trying to prevent going forward. Alegria said they interviewed the students in that photo afterward to drive home why they should have reported it. The district does have an anonymous tip system. Students scan a QR code to report bullying, threats, or violent posts. Alegria said it's existed for a while, but we found out a lot of students don't know about it or don't think it works. So they're relaunching an upgraded version before next school year.
I'm just curious, does that kind of anonymous reporting system exist at Oakland Tech? And if so, are you aware of it?
No, actually, no, I'm not. I don't know if the principal has talked about it before. We have an email newsletter, but I have not heard anything about that.
It hasn't crossed your radar. Well, that's interesting. That's a data point. So it sounds like the district's discipline and prevention just haven't kept pace with how kids are actually communicating. Is that what it feels like to you?
Yeah. And we learned that when footage circulates, it can actually pull in people from outside the school into conflicts that started on campus.
Right. And that could just make things worse. I know Rosalind talked to a violence interrupter who works directly with students during moments like that. What did he tell you guys?
Damari Marsh with Youth Alive is based at Dewey Academy. He said when a fight breaks out, some students immediately pull out their phones. When that happens, he tells them to stop right away because filming can pull the person recording into the drama and it can escalate things further.
Your team also talked to a staff member at Skyline who talked about how deeply upsetting it is to watch students treat a fight like entertainment.
Yeah, Nathan spoke with Eric Shapiro, Skyline's community school manager. He said watching students crowd around and enjoy the conflict, treating it like a reality show instead of something people are actually going through, is one of the hardest parts of his job.
I bet. Is there data on how often this is actually happening? How often fights are circulating, text messages, social media, through all of these channels?
Yeah, there's a new student-led group at OUSD called the Student Committee for Safety and Violence Prevention. It formed in December after the Skyline shooting with student reps from 5 schools. They surveyed 732 students across 24 campuses. Just over half, 55%, said they feel safe at school.
Wow, that means nearly half don't?
Yeah, and the most common issues students reported were gossip, verbal arguments, and threats, and social media issues.
What did students tell the committee would actually help?
Some said more staffs, monitoring hallways, faster adult intervention, and more support like counseling and de-escalation training. One student on the committee, Agustin Arroyo Bustamante, put it simply, the sooner an adult gets involved, the easier it is to resolve.
So restorative justice, traditional discipline, walk us through what OUSD leans on here.
Well, both depending on the severity of the incident. They officially prioritize restorative justice since 2010. Students sit down together in what's called an RJ circle to talk through what happened. But for more serious fights, suspension is still possible. And if there's a weapon involved, they can get expelled. Some students we talked to doubted this approach actually works. One rising junior at Oakland Tech said fights happen constantly, and while administrators say they'll handle it, usually it's just a suspension and the underlying tension doesn't go anywhere.
Ceci, this is heavy stuff to report on as a high schooler yourself. What really stood out to you while you were working on this reporting?
Honestly, how much students want an adult to respond quickly when something happens and how often they feel like adults aren't showing up for them. I think the gap is really at the center of both of these stories, actually. The bus pass system and the social media issue, in both cases, kids are stuck waiting on systems to serve them that haven't caught up to their reality.
That's a great way to put it, Cecia. And thank you so much for sharing this reporting, for all the work you did with us this year. It was so impressive.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. I'm so glad I got to join this year with the team.
You can find both of Cecia's stories along with the rest of our high school fellowship series at oaklandside.org. We'll link to everything in the show notes. Sticking with the schools beat this week, let's turn to another story from our fellows about a huge gap in who gets access to college prep classes in Oakland, and one high school's interesting answer to it. Education reporter Ashley McBride sat down with Castlemont High School's principal, Joseph Blasher, whose campus has skipped advanced placement classes almost entirely in favor of something else, dual enrollment, where college professors teach college-level courses right on campus. Here's that conversation.
Advanced placement classes, or APs, have become almost a requirement for competitive college applications, but not every OUSD school offers them equally. Skyline has 17 AP courses. 9 other OUSD schools, serving more than 2,000 students combined, offer 0. And the disparities aren't just school to school. District-wide, Black and Latino students enroll in AP classes at about half the rate of white and Asian students. But there's another option that's been quietly growing in Oakland: dual enrollment, where college professors come teach college-level classes right on high school campuses. Unlike AP, there's no fee-based exam standing between a student and the college credit. One Oakland school has leaned all the way into that model. Last year, Castlemont High School didn't offer any AP classes by choice. Instead, its principal, Joseph Blasher, has built up a dual enrollment program that's become one of the district's clearest success stories. I wanted to understand why, so I sat down with him. Principal Blasher, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Can you talk more about how your team came to decide whether or not to offer APs, and what are the factors that you all are having to evaluate?
Yeah. So first of it's I try to work with my teachers, right? I don't want to force people to do too many things. Obviously, we have things that I need you to do. I need to make sure we're teaching, rigorous curriculum, making sure that we're promoting critical thinking, our reading, writing, just basic skills. Like these things need to happen, right? We need to make sure we're addressing the student as a whole person. So when it comes to AP classes, I've talked to my econ teacher. Hey, would you like to teach an AP class next year? Like, we're really interested. Here's what you need to do. Same thing with an art teacher, an English teacher. So I'm having these conversations. I could take, for example, I only have one econ teacher. So if he's not it, then nobody is going to be teaching AP econ, right? I'm doing this other after school program. I have 3 kids. Like, I just don't have the capacity right now to teach an AP course. And so you have to take those step by step. And so once we've exhausted those, and we might find somebody who's like, oh yeah, I taught AP 3 years ago. My kids are grown now. I've done this curriculum for a few years. Like, I'm really ready to expand out. I would love to teach an AP class. And then, we put that in our course requests, and we have students like, hey, students who would be interested in AP or an honors English class. And if we have the numbers, then we move forward. What we've done in the past is sometimes force it, like I think it was about 4 years ago, where we were like, hey, we really want to make sure we have an AP history class. And we have these students who we think are going to be really great, and this teacher is going to be really great. And sometimes it works, but sometimes when you force it and you don't, go about this kind of change management in an intentional way, you don't have everything work out the way that you want it to be. You don't have everybody being successful. You might not have the teacher teaching with fidelity, the AP content. You might not have the students be ready. So you might have the whole year where they took this class, but then not get the credits at the end of it. And so there's a lot of collective work that goes into determining if you're going to have that. And again, if you're at a bigger school where you have 8 English teachers, you just have 8 more people that you can go with it. Whereas if you only have 3 English teachers, 2 English teachers, it's on them, and they're sometimes already teaching 3 different content areas. They might be teaching ELA 1, 2, and 3, and to put a 4th class on that load is just a lot, especially, with our current contract, teachers can only teach 2 different content areas.
Thank you for explaining that. That's really helpful to know that it also has to do with like your teaching staff and their capacity. Can you talk more about the benefits for students as it relates to dual enrollment versus AP? Why did you all lean more into dual enrollment?
Yeah. So we've really enjoyed our dual enrollment experiences right now. You can teach these really niche content areas that students might like. So we did some surveys for students, and real estate came up as a really big one. And we're going to have a dual enrollment real estate class next year. One of our teachers is going to be the point person, but we actually have an instructor coming in. And so we have our new college building that was built a couple of years ago. And so all of our dual enrollment classes happen over in that space. And one of the things we just love is that students get to interact with the college. Some of them are professors, some of them are instructors, but they get to feel like they're in college. So they kind of go to a different space in our campus. We try to have a few different field trips. We've been really promoting a college-going atmosphere with, having different swag and just different experiences for these students and making it, a requirement. We've really wanted to make sure that every student that leaves Castlemont has had at least one college class. Ideally, that's dual enrollment. It could also be concurrent enrollment. It could be an AP class. Again, it really depends on the profile of a given student, but the expectation is that you take at least one to demonstrate your college readiness. We have some students, that have already taken 3 by the time they become juniors. And so I think dual enrollment offers a little bit more flexibility because it doesn't always take away a teaching line or a cohort of teachers, right? And so, yeah, we've really enjoyed working with it. We've been building out that program. So I think about 20% of students were enrolled in a dual enrollment class last year, 20 or 25%. So yeah, we're continuing to build that program and build the offerings. And we're going to roll out a few more AP classes over the next few years, especially as we have teachers that are ready for it and have the capacity for it. So it's not that we're not planning on doing AP. And I think we can generally get funding, but that is a barrier sometimes is, families need a scholarship to pay for it.
One of the key reasons why students take AP is for college credit. And to get that credit, they have to take a test, which often costs money, and they have to pass that test. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about the differences in pass rates between AP students taking AP courses and students in dual enrollment courses?
Yeah, we want to make sure we're working with the instructors to make sure they have a rigorous assignment or assessments to make sure that they're demonstrating skills for that proficiency level. right? So I think that's some conversations we're still working with. And then you have on the other side, the AP, which is a historical institution. It's been built. It's very established. And so if you have students with high levels of testing anxiety, it doesn't matter. This is the test. You have to take care of it. And this is something we need to teach with students in general, whether it's PSATs or SATs, or you want to go to law school, you're always going to need to be able to take tests. That's a part of our culture that we live in. And so I think that dual enrollment gives us a little bit more flexibility to meet some of our students where they're at. And sometimes life just happens, on the day of that test. If you're not able to show up or show up in your best space, then you kind of don't get as much credit for it, or you at least don't get the college credit for the past year. Whereas for dual enrollment, you can work with them a little bit more around, it's like a finals. Can I take it a week early if I'm going to be out of town, or I have to do this other thing with my family? So trying to work with our population, and dual enrollment has been a little bit more flexibility in helping students gain college credits while still in high school.
In my reporting, I found that district-wide, 92% of OUSD students pass their AP class, but only about 39% pass the exam, which actually earns them credit. And at Castlemont, you told me before that around 87% of the dual enrollment students pass their courses outright. So that definitely is, a discrepancy that should be considered when weighing the pros and cons of these courses. So even still, AP still carries a lot of weight with families and in college admissions. Do parents or students, when they're coming for like school tours or anything, do they bring that up with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do ask about if we offer AP, and it is an issue sometimes. Yeah, it is.
What are the things you say to those families when they ask, why aren't there as many AP courses at this school versus another school?
Mm-hmm. And I try to give them the same answer that I gave you. In short, is year to year, depending on if we have our teachers that have been teaching those classes that are still here, that's great. But sometimes we don't always have the folks we want in those spaces. We have the folks in those spaces, but it's not the right time in their lives to do that. Again, we try to treat people as human beings and understand that. I do incentivize, if we have people that are ready to teach AP, how can we incentivize teachers to do that so that we can continue to provide those rigorous spaces? We also remind them that we have a lot of dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, we have honors classes. So your student's going to be challenged. Your student will have a rigorous challenge. If they want college credits, we'll help them get college credits. If they want access to, this, that, or the other thing, they can do that, especially if the family is involved. Students can be extremely successful here at Castlemont and be ready for college. We have students, who are going to Berkeley and all sorts of spaces next year and in the past years.
So zooming out, do you see Castlemont's approach to college access a model that other Oakland schools should consider, or is this something that really works for the Castlemont community?
Yeah, I think having a really intentional conversation with students and families about what they want for their future, what is their goals. College has changed, right? The amount of the college cost right now is different. We see these different technologies, specifically artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence, making it so the entry level jobs are not attainable or less attainable. So I think there's a huge conversation to continue to be had, because again, if the point of AP is to get you ready for college and college is to get you ready for career, and some of those career jobs or choices aren't as available or don't pay as well as they used to, I want to make sure we're having a broad conversation with our families about being ready, are you developing your critical thinking skills? Are you working on how you tell your own story and what you want to do and identify those things? Because filling up your resume or things with stuff, if you're not clear on what your goal is, kind of puts you on this track that you might not even be interested in. So again, we try to make sure we're having those conversations. We want every student to have all the opportunities possible. And so again, the way that we're doing it here at Castlemont is we do an individualized basis. We have a really phenomenal career center. We call it our future center. And we truly try to make sure that we send students on lots of different field trips, have lots of different job shadowing opportunities, do test prep, make sure they're taking rigorous classes, making sure that their transcripts are vetted, making sure that we have multiple family conferences so that we're having a continuous conversation with students and families throughout their hopefully 4 years here at Castlemont. So again, to answer your question, yeah, I think that dual enrollment offers a certain amount of flexibility for different schools to really take advantage of. And it really needs to be dependent on your people. Things need to shift and be tailored to your people, your demographic, and their wants and what they need.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast today, Principal Blasher.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, that's this week's episode of Oaklandside 510. Thanks for being with us. You can find all the student fellowship stories we talked about today and the rest of the series at oaklandside.org. Sign up for our daily newsletter to get our reporting delivered straight into your inbox. Thank you so much to today's student guest, Cecia Gonzalez, and to the rest of our 2026 class of Student Reporting Fellows. We loved having you with us. Nathan Fuentes, Ashley Martin Chales, Maya Mastro Pascua, Zoe Somas, Twyla Hoshida, Elizabeth Ramos, Cameron Williams, Daisy Camacho Lopez, Julia Magar, Alexis Kennedy, and Breon Melgoza. And thank you to Joseph Blasher, the principal of Castlemont High, for joining us to talk about how he thinks about AP and dual enrollment options in Oakland. Thanks to the Oaklandside reporters who mentored these student journalists this year. You gave it your all, and we're so grateful. Ashley McBride, Rosalind Romero, Jose Formoso, Natalie Orenstein, Azucena Garcia, and Eli Wolf. And thank you deeply to the Stewart Foundation for making this student fellowship program possible. It taught us so much about how to think about Oakland's public schools. This episode was produced by Mark Nieto and hosted by me, Oaklandside Deputy Editor Esther Kaplan, in for Tasneem Raja. On behalf of our entire newsroom, thank you for showing up for Oakland. We hope to see you next week.